the week. So to sum up for this weekend, not as turbulent as it has been, but still some rain at times, and any rain that we do get could bring further flooding. Rather windy in the south, but there will be some spells of sunshine. Ben.
Thank you very much indeed, and that is today's BBC News at 6. You can keep up to date with all the very latest developments on our BBC website, but from the 6 team, it's goodbye. The news does continue here on BBC One. It's time to join our colleagues across the nations and the regions for a look at the news where you are. But from me, do have a very good evening.
Thanks, Ben. Hello, welcome to Midlands Today with me, Mary Rhodes. The headlines tonight. The mother of a man with schizophrenia who killed his friend calls for an inquiry into mistakes made in his care.
If something doesn't change within our mental health services, where they take people seriously, whether they use drugs or not, then this will happen again.
An NHS report has admitted some errors in the case of Ryan Wilden, who was released early from a secure hospital. Also on the programme, the story behind 2 of Birmingham's most notorious drugs gangs from 20 years ago in a new podcast, Gangster.
They will hear the ins, the outs, the downright dirtiness of this story and the lives it's impacted on and affected.
King of the confectionery world, a life-size monarch, just one of the incredible exhibits at the Cake International show.
And today's sunshine was a treat, a real respite from the stormy conditions of this week, but I'm afraid there's more rain in the forecast for the weekend. All the details on the way.
Good evening. The mother of a man with schizophrenia who killed his friend is calling for an inquiry into mistakes made in his care. Ryan Wilden fatally stabbed Mark Hoof and seriously injured Mr Hoof's partner in Coventry 2 years ago. He'd been released early from a secure hospital after being sectioned for setting himself on fire. An NHS report admitted some errors. Rebecca Woods reports.
Mark was very, very supportive to my son. I'm utterly devastated that there is a family that can no longer speak to their son, their brother, their uncle, their dad, and that breaks my heart.
In 2021, father of 3, Mark Hoof, was stabbed to death by Bridget's son Ryan Wilden, a paranoid schizophrenic. The 2 men lived in a shared house in Coventry, along with Mark's girlfriend, who was also badly injured in the attack.
That a member of our own family could actually commit something like this has horrified us, and we've had all our intentions following this have been to get answers for the families.
Ryan was a prolific drug user and had a long history of mental illness. In the months leading up to the stabbings, he suffered several psychotic episodes and was hearing voices. Then in November 2020, he set himself on fire in his parents' car. He was sectioned but released early. His mum feels this was a fatal mistake.
I personally feel that he should have definitely been given more care, definitely been further assessed, because he was becoming worse and not better. But they justified it by saying that they couldn't keep him, it was against his human rights.
Medics made no plan for his discharge, so he ended up in a house for the homeless with Mark. But the psychotic episodes returned and Ryan thought his housemates wanted him dead.
He was repeating, "They're trying to kill me in the house, Mum. They're trying to poison me." And I just knew he was so ill again. The quickest way for me to get him any help, again, was to ring the police.
When we found out that Ryan had actually been taken back to the house with the police to meet his mental health worker and went in and committed this offence, we were devastated, absolutely devastated.
Mark tried to save his girlfriend from the attack, but died from around 50 stab wounds. Ryan was convicted of manslaughter with diminished responsibility and attempted murder and was sentenced to at least 16 years. He is currently in a secure mental health unit.
Mark's family didn't want to appear on camera, but they told me they were completely heartbroken by his death, and they want his killer to serve the rest of his sentence behind bars and not in a hospital.
A review by Coventry and Warwickshire Partnership NHS Trust into Ryan's care found he had been wrongly classed as low risk, there had been no communication with his family, and no thought had been given to find him secure accommodation.
I think they didn't have enough professional curiosity to look at really what was going on here. I think it was too easy for them to say, oh, this is not a mental health problem, this is a drug problem, he's got a personality disorder. It sort of feels like they washed their hands of him.
Ryan's family say they still have too many unanswered questions.
Let's get some answers. Hopefully we can get some lessons learned so things like this can't happen in the future.
In a statement, the Trust said, the care and treatment provided was reasonable and there is no indication that the tragic events in February 2021 were predictable or avoidable. The report did, however, indicate some recommendations which the Trust will fully implement.
But this, for me, was never about predictions, about prevention. And had they kept him, they would have discovered truly how ill he was. They didn't give him that chance.
Ryan's family are appealing his sentence to try and keep him in a secure hospital.
I have no doubt if something doesn't change within our mental health services, where they take people seriously, whether they use drugs or not, then this will happen again.
With two families devastated, they also want an inquiry to look into why Ryan fell through the net of our mental health system. Becky Woods, BBC Midlands Today, Coventry.
And you can find out more on this story on the BBC News online pages. A report into the impact of Coventry's City of Culture programme had on the city has found it generated more than £183 million for the local economy, but says those who owed money after it collapsed prematurely are unlikely to get anything back. Well, the report, which was written by the city's two universities, also found that almost half of the city's residents engaged with the programme, but staff working on it felt unsupported. Kevin Reid reports.
The 212-page report looks primarily at the impact of Coventry's year as City of Culture in 2021. It shows that the year cost around £45 million of public money, but generated £183 million for the city's economy.
The outstanding feature of all of this for me is that there was a UK City of Culture in 2021 hosted in Coventry, despite the ravages and disruption of a global pandemic, and I'm not sure how many other cities might have pulled that off.
47% of Coventry residents engaged with the programme, and it attracted those from hard-to-reach communities. But the report found serious failings in marketing. One example being when leaflets were delivered to homes after events had happened. It also paints a picture of other serious issues like high staff turnover. Around half of the employees left prematurely.
There's no doubt that there were significant mental health issues experienced by Trust employees during the pandemic, in managing the pandemic, and may have been to do with other features of the Trust's operations which we're less aware of. But yes, there was certainly a high turnover.
As we know, the Coventry City of Culture Trust went into administration unexpectedly with debts of millions. The people who ran the Assembly Festival Gardens, which were behind here, are owed more than £1 million. And the report says that they and others are unlikely to see their money again.
I think it's shocking, really. And we're faced with a situation where we'll be left with a debt of over £1 million. And that's catastrophic to a company of our scale.
The Charity Commission is still investigating, but meanwhile Coventry City Council, who too are owed more than £1 million, believe it was a success.
I think the real positives are there was an ambition, a drive to deliver. We saw that in the public realm works we did in the city. We saw that in the investment in our historic and cultural buildings. And actually I think it gave the organisations in the city hope and a drive to deliver too.
In spite of the Trust's administration, Coventry still has a 10-year cultural plan, and those involved say it will rise again. Kevin Reid, BBC Midlands Today, Coventry.
Two people arrested after a dog attack in Stoke-on-Trent have been released on conditional bail. A 29-year-old man and a woman who's 22 were detained on suspicion of owning a dog dangerously out of control. A man in his 30s remains in hospital after the incident in Elgrave Street in Burslem. The dogs involved in the attack, believed to be XL bullies, have been secured. Plans for a £700 million business district in Coventry have been shelved. The Friargate development was to consist of 25 buildings around Coventry railway station, including office blocks, hotels and hundreds of homes. But the City Council says the original vision has now been abandoned, leaving 2 office blocks and a hotel. Firefighters in Rugby have paid tribute to 4 of their colleagues who who were killed in a blaze in Atherstone-on-Stour in Warwickshire in 2007. They held a minute's silence in tribute to Ian Reid, John Averis, Ashley Stevens and Darren Yates-Badley, who all died while fighting the warehouse fire. Now, leaving home and finding a job, a tough enough task for any youngster, but it can be a particular challenge for someone brought up in care. This is National Care Leavers Week, a chance to celebrate the skills and values of young people. People like James, who's been given a chance of a job with the NHS. Giles Latcham reports.
What we also have is a little thank you message from us to say thank you for the work you're doing.
It's just over a year since James started working at Birmingham Children's Hospital.
So this month's mental health.
He grew up in care and now he helps care for the well-being of staff.
So if let's take away one of those, I think having a care experience makes us different in a lot of ways. I've always had to look after myself, and from that I've kind of learned to look after others.
His foster parents were great, getting him into sport and supporting his studies, but school was no picnic.
It was hard because I kind of knew I was different in some form, but I eventually managed to cope with that and just shut it out almost and do my academic studies.
During COVID, James nearly became homeless. His hopes of joining the police were dashed, but the NHS gave him a chance, one of 19 care leavers currently employed by the Trust and valued.
They're super resilient, they've had to navigate a lot on their own as they've been growing up, and they can add that value to our services and make it easier for other young people who might be growing up in care.
Would you like a free chocolate as well?
I do get the sense that some of his deep empathy for other colleagues and understanding of diverse backgrounds comes from his own experience. You can tell that he's a really caring young man.
This nationwide billboard campaign is the brainchild of a firm from Wolverhampton which persuades employers to commit to a charter helping young people leaving care and starting adult life. James has his own flat now and perhaps just as importantly, a workplace where he feels he belongs. Giles Latcham, BBC Midlands Today.
Thanks for joining us here on Midlands Today. We'll get the weekend forecast from Becky shortly. She'll also bring us the icing on the cake as we're up close with Aussie, or at least a life-size confectionery version, on show at Cake International. They were by far the most intimidating and scary that I've met, the words of an undercover police officer who helped convict members of the notorious Burger Bar boys gang in Birmingham in 2005. Well, their feud with a rival gang, the Johnson crew, culminated in the murders of 2 innocent girls 20 years ago. A new BBC 5 Live podcast series, Gangsters, looks at how the gangs operated and the impact on victims' families. I'll be speaking to the officer in just a moment. But first, Peter Wilson has a reminder of one of the biggest stories in Birmingham's history.
Alpha Oscar 1, 6537.
January the 2nd, 2003, a police helicopter hovers over a scene of violence and mayhem. Machine gun fire sprayed into a crowd of partygoers in Aston, Birmingham. 2 teenage friends, Charlene Ellis and Letitia Shakespeare, lay dead. 2 other girls, including Charlene's twin sister, Sophie Ellis, were wounded. In a new BBC series, Livy Haydock has spoken to Sophie about that terrible night and the continuing threat from the gangs.
They're still very much a family, or Sophie for sure is a lady very much in hiding, you know, for her own safety. And I think just has lost trust in just about everything and everyone.
The Burger Bar boys and the Johnson crew played out a deadly war on the streets of Birmingham. The series includes an interview with an undercover cop.
He said to me exactly the same. He said, I've never come across such hateful, unpleasant people with no feeling of remorse or empathy. And it annoys me because so many people claim the name to this day, the Burgers.
4 men were convicted of the New Year's shootings, but it needed a change in the law to allow anonymous witnesses to give evidence before the power of the gangs could be broken. The new series, called Gangster from BBC Radio 5 Live, is available on BBC Sounds. Peter Wilson, BBC Midlands Today.
Well, Neil Woods was an undercover police officer who infiltrated the Burger Bar boys, and he joins me now. Neil, thanks ever so much for coming in. This actually sounds, frankly, terrifying. What went through your head when you were asked to go undercover?
Well, I mean, I'd been working undercover probably for about 10 years before I did this particular operation. And it was unusual because at no point in the 7 months I was working on this operation did I feel safe in the company of these people. They were definitely a significant step up in how aggressive, the aggressive tactics they would use to intimidate.
But you had to pose as a heroin addict. How did you infiltrate the gang?
Well, I spent weeks sort of building up a legend, a reputation, and then I persuaded some people to introduce me directly to them. Because I'd been buying off sort of their runners, the peripheral members of their gang, but I needed to obviously get evidence off the 6 Burger Bar boys who were running that particular operation. So I just got directly introduced. Did you have to take the drugs? No, I'm glad that I didn't. I would have found that quite scary, but no, I didn't have to on this operation.
And the first time you came across them, what happened?
Well, the first time I was introduced to them, I got taken into a toilet of a snooker club, and they surrounded me. 4 of them were walking around me, headbutting me and punching me, while another one was stood looking down at me, interrogating me and testing my answers. And it was a clever interrogation, really, rephrasing questions, that kind of thing.
Did you fear for your life?
I did, very much so, because the intelligence leading up to the operation, which I was privy to, made it quite clear that what they were capable of. One of them was a suspect in 7 different murders. So I knew the risks, yeah.
Now, obviously, you were no stranger to this kind of operation, but how were they compared with other gangs you'd come across? Were different level?
Yeah, I mean, over the 10 years I'd worked undercover up to that point, or 10 years or so, every time I did an operation it got more dangerous. The gang was more ruthless because the market is constantly adapting to the operations and tactics of police. So the market constantly gets more violent because of the presence of people like me in that marketplace.
You're a professional, you were doing your job, but you're human as well. What impact has this had on you?
Well, I am diagnosed with complex PTSD, and I'm sure some of the events during this operation, which I've written about, of course, I'm sure some of the events in this operation contributed to that over time. And, you know, many police do suffer PTSD as a result of being on the front line in this war on drugs.
Neil, we really appreciate you talking to us. It's a fascinating podcast, and thank you so much for being so open about it. Thank you. Now, politics isn't usually a subject of interest for a 9-year-old, but Frederick from Stoke is taking a very keen interest. He's been invited to Westminster after raising his concerns about the look of his local area. Fred rang Radio Stoke to say he was disappointed with the state of the historic buildings in Burslem. Now the MP Jonathan Gullis said he's been happy to meet him to hear his concerns. Jenny Aitken reports.
Concerns about local heritage and empty buildings often get the local radio phones ringing, but it's not typically a 9-year-old boy that gets in touch.
I feel disappointed in what we could do, the UK could do to help Stoke-on-Trent.
Back in the Year 5 classroom, Frederick explains why it's important to get his voice heard and how he thinks politicians should do more to make his hometown a better place.
The politics in the UK, well, some will agree with me, some will disagree. It's not as good as it could definitely be. When we're going through Burslem, we just look around and you'll always see there's these buildings and sometimes these parks, like Burslem Park, which are just being left to wreck and ruin.
And it looks like this newfound passion for local politics has rubbed off on his classmates too.
I've seen a lot of old buildings just getting rotten down, and I also agree that we should get some money and get it all nice.
I don't think they're trying their best because what they're doing is all these buildings, broken glass everywhere.
If they're knocked down, I think we should build them up again.
Football-loving Frederick is regularly in Burslem watching Port Vale, and he's worried about the state of its historic buildings and says more needs to be done to restore them.
You'll find that these buildings are beautiful in the most of ways. But what we've been doing to recognise that beautiful is not enough.
The MP for Stoke-on-Trent North says he's pushing for more money for regeneration work on top of the £56 million of levelling up funding secured for the city. Whilst casting his vote, or maybe even standing in an election, is still a few years away, Frederick won't let his age stop him from getting stuck in to local issues. Jenny Aitken, BBC Midlands Today, Stoke-on-Trent.
And if, like Frederick, you want to know more about local politics, then don't forget Politics Midlands this Sunday here, BBC One, 10 o'clock with Rob Mayer. Soon, I suspect, to be replaced by Frederick. Right, time for sport now. Dan has joined me. It's the first round of the FA Cup this weekend. It's always a special moment in the sporting calendar.
Yeah, and it's often a high point for Hereford. Tomorrow they're at home to Gillingham of League Two. This season they've got a new manager in Paul Caddis and pretty much a new team, but their tradition with the FA Cup continues.
It's FA Cup week and Hereford are buzzing. On Saturday they host League Two Gillingham, hoping to reach the second round for the first time since the club was reformed as Hereford FC in 2014.
I was aware of the history of the FA Cup in this club, and I'm just thankful that I've managed to stick to that. We're looking forward to it, the players are looking forward to it, the players and the club deserve it.
And that means extra pressure on groundsman Ben Bowen. He's the uncle of West Ham's Jared Bowen and has been working extra hard to get the pitch spot on despite the wet weather.
A little bit more pressure because you want that game on and you don't want to let people down with the weather, what we're having at the moment. But just do what you have to do and don't let the pressure get to you. Everything just rolls into one, so we're fine.
Good, last one, big man, keep working.
More than 4,000 tickets have already been sold.
I'm quite humble in terms of I understand what life's like with the cost of living and stuff like that. I know how difficult it is for people to commit every single week, but we're extremely grateful for every person that walks through that turnstile on Saturday.
If the mood on the training ground is anything to go by, it could be quite a game.
Oh, good luck to Hereford. I've got a very fond spot for them coming from Herefordshire. We don't have to wait until tomorrow, though, do we, for the FA Cup to kick off?
No, Walsall are in action tonight. They're at the other side of the coin compared to Hereford because they're the ones trying to avoid the Cup upset. They're in Kent tonight. They're playing Sheppey United. There are 4 divisions separate these two, so that's a massive gap. Walsall want to put in a good performance because they want to go on a cup run of their own.
It's a big game for us. Don't make no bones about that. We are desperate to win the game. And to do that we have to be extremely on it in the game. We have to make sure that our mentality is focused and right and ready because we'll be up against an opposition that are desperate to do it.
We're going to turn the clock back a little bit further now, down to a football hero from a very different era.
Yeah, it's been a day to celebrate the career of Frank Su, the first player of Chinese origin to play in the English Football League. Now, Frank Su played more than 170 times for Stoke City either side of the Second World War. Today, his family are in the city to see his name added to the city's Sporting Hall of Fame.
What it means to the family is the fact that finally Frank has been recognised. This is where he started his Premier League football, well, his First Division football for Stoke. This is where he made his name for himself, and I'm so pleased that Stoke Council have decided to honour him. So proud, unbelievably proud.
A groundbreaking career well worth celebrating.
Yes. Now, Dan, I know you're a finely honed athlete yourself.
So kind.
But are you a cake maker, cake eater?
Neither I love cooking, but I've never been a baker, so I'd have to put myself down as a cake eater, I think.
Well, I'm definitely on the baking front more of a bread maker. This is way, way beyond me. Take a look at this.
That cannot be cake.
No,
surely not.
The King, in case you weren't sure. Life-size confectionery form. As Toby, one of our engineers, said, it must be royal icing. That wasn't mine. Just one of the incredible exhibits at, yes, Cake International at the NEC, which calls itself the world-leading sugar art show. Rebecca Wood has been getting a slice of the action.
The Prince of Darkness back home, but this is a sweeter Aussie than you've seen before.
The Prince of Chocolate.
The devil's in the detail. Every tooth is individually made out of chocolate. He's hand-painted and in total took 150 hours to make.
It pops into my head, I can visualise it, if I can see it, I can make it, and that's how strangely how I work.
From a prince to a king, an entirely edible King Charles III. Apart from his crown jewels, of course.
The crown has got a support system which is covered with modelling chocolate, sugar paste, and then crystals are applied to that. The rest of him is all sugar paste, as you'd cover a cake.
Emma Jane is a dab hand at exhibition cakes like this, so can she teach me some of her tricks?
We're going to just put a little bit of piping gel, which is like a glycerin, a sugar substance. Yeah. We'll apply it to this part of the scepter and we'll use the tool to attach it on. Just twist the tool and there you go.
We did it!
All done!
It's still standing! But this is about more than just showstoppers. Some of the best bakers in the world come here to have their cakes judged.
This is the competition section of the show, and some of these cakes even made their way here on their very own aeroplane seat.
Winning a gold at Cake International is their stamp of approval. It's their main goal in life. So yeah, as a cake artist, winning gold at Cake International is the thing.
From the traditional to something more alternative, more than 70 artists helped to make this Stranger Things exhibition. They started work on it in April. You have until Sunday to sample it.
That is amazing. The artistry there. Well, Becky is with me now, and I was holding my breath. So you didn't push the cake over. I mean, you'd have been in tears.
Not as much as I was. Oh, tears. Oh, got it. Very good. Very good, Mary. Take the rest of the weekend off.
Oh, thanks.
Wasn't it a welcome sight today to see some blue skies out there? It wasn't blue sky everywhere. In the North Midlands, we had plenty of rainbows because we had sunny spells and showers through the course of the day. As we head through the weekend, I'd love to tell you that we are going to have some lovely sunshine, but I'm afraid there is still some rain in the forecast. And that rain is going to be working its way through as we head through tonight. So let's just take a look at the menu. It's only a little menu for the weekend because Saturday is looking pretty wet. We have got some rain to come, but as we head into Sunday, it turns drier and brighter with some sunshine. So we have low pressure still dominating our weather. It's sending this next system our way. We have got a system of fronts coming through as well. Eventually, we're going to start to see our wind direction switching to a northwesterly as well. So our temperatures are going to start to dip. As for tonight, there are some clear spells developing. Initially, temperatures will fall away. So if you're off to a bonfire, not too bad tonight. Then we start to get a little bit of cloud working its way up in this next area of rain, which is waiting in the wings. It is going to be a chilly night tonight, those temperatures falling away initially, 4 or 5 Celsius. So as we start the day tomorrow, we have got that rain band working its way up from the south. On the back edge of that, you'll notice those green flashes, heavy downpours to come. But through the course of the day, it's clearing its way northwards. We'll be left with some cloud. There may still be some showers following on, a little slither of brightness, but not everywhere. Temperatures are going to struggle underneath all of that, 8 to 11 Celsius. As we head through the end of the day, that low pressure system starts to change its direction. We're in the centre of it. So another good night for fireworks tomorrow night initially. Then we're going to start to get some showers which filter their way through. Our wind direction changing to that northwesterly feed. Temperatures 6 or 7 Celsius, helped a little by that cloud cover. As for Sunday, finally, the low pressure will clear away. We should see some sunshine, still a few showers, a chance of those, but I'm afraid it's brief because next week it's unsettled again, Mary.
Oh, well, that's November for you. Becky, thank you. And that's all from us for now, but do join us on Monday if you can. We'll be reporting from a school in Handsworth and Birmingham, which is making improvements with the help of the local community, setting up an allotment and a farm, sheep, llamas and all. That is all from us for now. From everyone here, have a great weekend. Bye for now.